The entire concept of rewriting notes needs to go in the trash.
Okay. This is my final year transcript. As we can see, after I implement my new study strategies, I am getting amazing percentages. And before, again, not getting very bad, but definitely nowhere near as amazing as the second lot. And then, of course, I got the prize for ranking first. So if that isn't enough evidence, I don't know what is.
Now, what do we stop doing? So we've talked about the 2 key principles that are going to propel us to success, but let's see what not to do, because that's a nice starting point, okay? What not to do. We're going to stop rewriting notes. Okay, I actually hate this entire concept of rewriting notes. Okay, so many people that I went to school and uni and just studied with, every exam season would come around and they would be rewriting their notes. Like, why are we rewriting notes? Everything has been provided for you, especially at GCSEs and at A-levels, especially, everything has been provided for you. Sometimes some lecturers are a little bit interesting, but in terms of providing their materials, so they don't give you full notes. So in that case, fine, okay, you can write notes, but rewriting notes, when you have a full set of notes, is actually the worst thing that you could possibly do with your time. You're already constricted because your exams are coming up soon. You've got so much to do already in terms of active recall, flashcards, exam practice, so many questions. Rewriting notes, oh my word, I'm getting annoyed about it. Rewriting notes is immediately a no. Okay, in classes, I would sit, and if the lecturer, like I said, was providing notes, full notes for me, I would not write down a single word of notes for that lecture. Okay, keeping in mind this is a math lecture, there are some lectures that you actually have to write notes for, and that's completely fine. Depending on content heavy, like my econ lectures, yes, there were more notes. But what's more important than writing the notes is to really understand what your lecturer is explaining, like the concepts, and really figure out how to do the examples. Because if you can do that in the class, you can go home, and as a part of your review, which is then not made redundant, you can write out what you remember from class, what examples you remember, etc., and the notes that they had provided. But when I sat in class and I was 100% focused on actually doing the questions, on making sure that I understood every single word that my lecturer was saying and doing the examples alongside him or as he was doing it, but trying to race him, I don't know if anybody else did that, my understanding compared to the student next to me who has just vigorously been scrabbling to write down what every single word the lecturer is saying, compared to this person, my understanding was so much deeper. And so by the second time I got around to doing it, I had forgotten less of it. And it wasn't just like, hey, I've written 10 pages of notes on this and I don't even remember what it was about. That's not a place that you want to be. Enough of that rambling about rewriting notes. So again, like I said, some topics and content and subjects are going to require you to write notes, that's fine. But the entire concept of rewriting notes needs to go in the trash. So rereading textbooks. Rereading textbooks. This is not a great one, okay? Sometimes it's required because you've got pre-reading, case studies, and some assignments you have to actually read the textbook. But if you're using that as your primary form of exam revision, no, okay? Not for exam revision. It's more like the preliminary context or learning, okay? It is not for exam revision. Actually, there's an extension for textbook questions are not always reflective of exams, okay? So be careful doing textbook questions. Careful. I'm losing my voice thinking about rereading and rewriting notes.
If this video has been useful to you so far, then consider giving this video a like, because it really helps me know that this kind of content is worth making.
Highlighting stuff. Everybody likes this. Honestly, I fall victim to this as well sometimes because I love highlighting stuff in pastel colors. But highlighting things is not effective. Surprise, surprise. Okay, everybody says this stuff, so I'm not going to say too much on this. Highlighting stuff as a form of, for example, preliminary understanding before your lecture. Okay, fine, you can just highlight some key things, okay? Well, like for example, I've done here. So here I'm just learning some things about, okay, I've written like a bunch of rules, okay? Yes, you can highlight things just so they stand out to you. So if you kind of open the book and you see it for the first time, you're like, okay, have clarity on strategy, service content, YouTube rewards, whatever, mastery, you can just quickly pick them out. But this is not going to help me in the exam because I haven't memorized this entire thing. I have no idea what most of it would say if somebody asked me. The next is for covering content. Okay, so this is a tricky one. So you're just covering content. You're like, okay, exams are coming up and I'm going to cover the content. Okay, but you don't test yourself. Okay, it doesn't take a genius to know that that's not going to get you anywhere. Covering content without testing yourself is like, I want to say, walking on a minefield. I don't know why I thought of that example, but I did. You're literally asking for your exam to flop. You're asking to fail in your exam. You're saying, hey, I'm going to cover this content and not test myself because I want to fail this exam. Which, yeah, okay, nothing more to say about that. If you don't test yourself, you have no idea what you actually remember and what you actually don't, and so fail. Okay, test yourself, please, using end of textbook questions as well as the key thing, which is past exam questions. Okay, these are your best friend. So wherever you can get your hands on them, please use them. I know some unis have it like kind of sparse exam question sets, which is just sad. But what I used to do also is use a ChatGPT to generate me more questions. I remember for one of my modules, I was a bit clueless on how to answer the past question. So I put the mock into ChatGPT and I said, hey, can you make me a mock exactly like this, please? Kind of mirroring the format of this and obviously the content and the question types. And I did the mock for the ChatGPT before, and then kind of fixed my mistakes, etc. before I actually did the actual mock, because that was the only practice paper that we had access to for that module. So I wasn't just wasting the mock, not even knowing the content. When you have resources that are very few, I suppose you can use this. This is a great hack. Last but not least is leaving exam practice or exam questions to the very end. To the very end. Okay. You want to be interspersing all your revision, all your practice, homework, assignments, whatever it might be, with exam questions throughout the entire semester. So if you, for example, start your semester in October and then have exams January after the winter holidays, you need to practice at least one exam style question for your exam from the end of October. So you've had a month of studies. From the end of October, you should be testing like at least one practice question on that module every week. Like one is not a lot. It literally will take you 10-15 minutes, but you're getting your head used to exam style questions. You're getting your head in the game. Okay, like I said, exams are a game. Okay, so all of these things, okay, rewriting notes, rereading textbooks, highlighting, covering content, not testing yourself, and leaving exam practice or exam style questions to the very end, they all feel comfortable, you know? It feels like, hey, I'm actually doing some work. I'm going to come back home on Tuesday evening. I'm going to reread the textbook. It feels like I'm doing studying, but they just waste your limited time. 100% do not recommend it. No. Just flat, no. Again, here, with this point here, the covering content. Coverage is literally a procrastination strategy just disguised as you studying and being productive. So don't do this, okay? This is procrastination. And also, you don't need to cover every single thing. You really don't need to cover every single thing. I don't know if many students know this, but covering every single thing is just going to lead you to disaster, okay? There's going to be some minute details here and there across your entire modules that you're going to miss, and that's fine, because 20% of information, of whatever, I think it's called the Pareto principle, okay? 20% of information leads you to 80% of the results, okay? Think about that. That's huge. 20% of your work, of your efforts, of your information, obviously, they need to be optimized for the right thing. Because, let's be real, the example's gone, but Ron's 100% of his efforts, we're not going to get him close to 80%, okay? But 20% that Janet was doing is going to give her 80% of her results. So then you just need to work a little bit extra for the kind of minute detail information. So don't work harder. You need to work smarter. These are things that we are not doing. Okay, we know our two principles, which were marks over hours and active recall and feedback loops. And with this information, we have our mindset fixed for how we are going to absolutely demolish exams. Mark scheme. The mark scheme. Well, every great student's favorite thing. It's literally a cheat sheet guide to how you're going to demolish the exams, as I said. You need to study from the mark scheme backwards. You're going to reverse engineer your success. So the mark scheme is a real curriculum, or the specification. And what you need to do is study it like that's the exam. Obviously, you're going to use specs kind of before you start your exam practice, and then the mark schemes for the actual exam practice after. You're going to review that, fix your mistakes, use this cycle here, this loop. Because studying without the mark scheme is like training for a sport without knowing how points are scored. Like, you're playing football, okay? You're literally playing football. The net is here, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to win this game. And then you just start shooting in the opponent's net. Or like your own net, maybe. How does football work? Yeah, your own net. You just start shooting own goals. And you're like, yes, hooray, like we got it in. And your teammate's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? It's literally like that. You need to know the rules, i.e. the mark scheme or the specifications, to be able to score points. I will leave you with the final words of, once you rebuild your studying around outputs, feedback, and exam constraints, so the mark scheme, time, etc., your grades will genuinely change completely. And it will be easy as pie. I think I wrote easy as pie on the other side before. But it's going to be shocking how much of an impact these things will have on your grades. If you feel like all of this resonates with you, it's because you're not lazy. You're just misallocating effort. And in the next video, I'll break down exactly how I study for exams, step by step, and the exact framework that I use to turn effort into marks and thus graduate first, ranking highest in my graduating year group. Okay? And that is taught by Teddy.